So I'm wanted to ask you about your cover story this week, 11 Days of Snitch, which is about a Coeur d'Alene, 19-year-old Coeur d'Alene kid who becomes a confidential informant for the Idaho State Police Department, apparently, and then 11 days later he's dead of what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to explore some of your thinking behind this story and what you've discovered. First, I wanted to ask about how did this story come to your attention?
So I contacted this young man, Isaiah's mother, through a source who I've spoken with in the past, and I met with her a few months ago, probably at this point, and she said, hey, I believe my son, who died in May, may have been an informant for the Idaho State Police, and I've not been given a lot of answers as to the circumstances surrounding his death. And oh, by the way, I extracted all the data off of his phone that basically presents some very strong evidence that he was communicating with an Idaho State detective, and kind of took off from there.
So the Idaho State Police still won't confirm that he's an informant or not. Right. So how were you able to find the evidence that suggests that in fact he was, and feel safe with having the word snitch on the cover?
Right. So in addition, I lined up the dates and times of the text between Isaiah and this person Josh, who he's identified as Josh in his phone, with a affidavit in the court file in a felony drug case in Kootenai County, in which this detective Josh Clark for the Idaho State Police, says on 3 separate occasions I used a confidential informant to conduct drug buys against this individual, and the dates for those drug buys lined up perfectly with the text messages in Isaiah's phone. I also did, probably 10, 15 interviews with Isaiah's friends and family and people who could provide some context and some information.
These text messages have not only do they have all the messages and who they're from, but also geolocation data. Yeah. What did you learn about, beyond just the fact that he was a confidential informant, what did you learn about Isaiah himself from these text messages?
Yeah, so he comes across as kind of this, at times carefree, confident, very, just a happy kid. He's happy with what he's doing, and other times he comes across as kind of this, maybe sensitive, emotional, almost kind of lost, searching for an identity type of a kid. He didn't have a lot of support or parental guidance growing up, and kind of relied on friends and himself to raise himself, and he looked after his siblings at a young age, and it's evident that this, as an 18, 19-year-old kid, he had to grow up very quickly, and the texts show that.
Was there a specific text that stands out in your mind, or kind of clarifies or provides insight you can think of?
Yeah, so there's this stretch of maybe about a half day, where his father is about to go back into prison or is back in custody, and his father was a role model figure for him, and it really tears him up. And he's texting with his mother, and she's saying, I'm so sorry, what can I do to help, how are you feeling? And he's like, she asks him what he needs, and he says, my father, I feel lost without him, going crazy, if he's going to be gone for another 3 years of my life. And the texts continue, and so he's feeling bad for himself, and wishing he had a father figure, but at the same time, he in those texts he recognizes that he needs to play that father figure role for his younger brother Isaac. And so just him recognizing his responsibility and stepping up, and putting aside his own distress and being there for his younger brother, I think really is the core of who this kid is, a loyal, selfless young man.
And in terms of are there any questions, or a big question that you weren't able to get answered in your reporting that you'd like to have answered?
Yeah, well, so in addition to the fact that the Idaho State Police wouldn't confirm on record that he worked as a drug informant for them, they also wouldn't release their internal policies that tell detectives how to interact with and handle confidential informants. And so, aside from what supervisors at the state police were able to tell me in general terms, we don't know, how detectives are instructed to handle these situations. We don't know how many confidential informants they have. We don't know how much money they spend on them. We don't know where that money comes from. So as a matter of public policy, those are important questions that we don't have answers to, but they should be answered.
So for all the transparency and scrutiny on police departments, the informant world for Idaho State Patrol is still essentially a black box.
Absolutely, as far as I've been able to tell. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for spending a few minutes to talk with me.
Yeah. Thank you.